What is poppin', everybody? Welcome back to the channel. As you guessed it, today we are going on another hike. During this hike, we will be discussing bats and how to handle bat nuisance issues. Along with discussing bat nuisance issues, I will be discussing stories that kind of help you get a better idea of how these animals could become nuisances and ways that you can prevent that and your options when these nuisance issues are occurring. Like always, if you enjoy this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell to be notified the next time I post, so you can come on my next adventure with me. But until then, let's get started. Now, bats are another one of those species that are able to pass information down to generation to generation. And what I mean by that is, in bats, you'll see a lot of the daughters that are born will use the same roosts as their mothers, their grandmothers, and great-grandmothers, and so forth and so on. They often use multiple roosts in an area. So an example of a roost would be in someone's attic. Another could be inside of an abandoned building, things of that nature. So their offspring are gonna use these same roosts. So they could have been using a attic for 50 years, 100 years, whatever the case may be, way before you even moved into that house or into that building, and that you were aware that there were bats in there. Now, depending on the size of the roosting colony, you may not be able to detect that there are bats living in your building, in your house, or whatever the case is. Now, if you are able to identify it, you'll probably hear lots of chitter chatter coming from the bats. They can be very vocal at times, and you would probably start to see a lot of scratch marks and claw marks on the side of the buildings or wherever they are using their entry exit points. That's another important point to remember. If you can identify their entry and exit points, that's going to help you in the long end, and we're going to discuss that a little more in a second. So this is pretty cool. I just think I came across a little beaver pond. Come on, Ru. Look at all of this. They've been at work here. That one. Look at this one, Ru. They've been chomping at the bit here. I know this is a video about bats, but beavers are pretty cool too. I might do a video on them later. But beavers love the sound of running water. That's typically where they would start to build their little dam. And you could tell where they are because they slide into the water. It's cool. All right, Ru, come on. Yeah, Ru, there's definitely a lot of animals in this forest. There's some scat right there. It must be from a predator. There's fur in it. I wouldn't be surprised if there are beavers here. You might have a coyote or a bobcat hanging around. Some more chew marks from the beavers. I'll keep my eye out and see if we can find their dam. But back to the bat stuff. Now, if you are aware or unaware of the fact that you have bats in or on your property, these are some things that you can look out for to kind of give you a better idea if you're seeing the signs of bats, but you're not 100% sure that it's a bat or that it's a bat doing these things. So one thing is going to be the chirping, chitty chatter of the sound coming from a large colony. Now, colonies aren't that big as they used to be because of white nose syndrome, which has really dropped the numbers of all of our species of bats significantly. That's why they're all either on the state endangered list or species of special concern. Looking out for those claw marks at the side of roofs, the side of eaves, by vents. Those are the type of things that they're going to use to enter and exit from. And you can identify where they're entering and exiting from if you go outside at dusk. Is usually when they start to come out. A perfect time would be around dusk or about 30 minutes after sunset. That's when prime bat activity is going to start to occur, and you can just sit outside and you'll see where they start to drop from. Typically it's going to be high up in the air because bats, although they can fly, the wings and their ankles are so small that they don't have enough lift power to just fly straight off the ground. So they need high elevation so they can drop down and swoop up. That's how they take off for flight. That's why they hang upside down. That's why they like to be roosting up in high locations. So you'll be able to see exactly where they're entering and exiting the property from, and that's another sure sign that there are bats roosting on your property if you're seeing the bats coming out of your property. Come on, Ru. Now, third, something else you can look out for is, now you're gonna see bat guano if they're using that location as a primary roosting site, which is bat poop essentially. Not essentially, it's bat poop. And it's easily identified. There's some basic characteristics that you can use to identify guano. It's easily crushable if you're willing to crush it open, and it will reveal a shiny inside, and that shininess is going to be the undigested insects in the poop. Now, it doesn't have like a white or a chalky appearance like you would see in birds, so you wouldn't be able to confuse it. So I would look on Google or something like that and get an idea of what you're looking for, but those are some key characteristics that you can use to identify bat guano. And the cool fact about bat guano is it is an excellent fertilizer. So if you have bats and you like planting and gardening, then you might be able to use that as a natural fertilizer. The more you know. More of the beavers. Rudy, you can't sniff them out? It has to be in this pond here somewhere. That's where all the trees are. Come on. Now, if you have identified that it is bats that are the cause of your nuisance issues, as far as the loud noises and the large accumulations of guano, then what are your options? What can you do to get rid of the bats? Well, your best option would be an exclusion or an eviction of the bats. During a certain time period in the year, once they leave, you put up possibly a one-way gate. That way, you can come out of it, but you can't go back in it. Or you can just seal it up to the best of your ability. You can hire a wildlife nuco, or you can look to see if there are any nuisance wildlife people in your area and see if they do bat evictions, and they can come and do it for you. Now, I would still take into consideration that being able to identify the entry and exit points and maybe even the species of bats, getting as much information as you can before going to a nuco person will kind of help with the rate that they might give you, and even an idea of how many bats you're dealing with. If you're sitting out at dusk and waiting for the bats to exit, it's a cool thing to sit with the kids, maybe your wife or your significant other, and just count the bats and see how many are in your colony. There's a very important thing that comes into consideration with doing an eviction is, like I said, there are certain times of the year that you cannot do an eviction because of particular reasons. Now, an exclusion cannot be done between the months of June and August. One reason is there may still be young flightless young that aren't leaving the roost yet to go and hunt and scavenge with their mothers, so they're staying back in the roost until they're strong enough to fly. So if all the moms leave and they're not able to come back, all of those bats, all of those pups are going to die. After that, the bats should be leaving to go to their winter hibernating sites or roosting sites. Depending on the species of bats you're dealing with, some stay and roost in attics and in buildings, usually more so the males than the females. The males kind of do their own thing, live in bachelor pads, if you could call it that, and mostly the roost would be of young pups and females. So that's something that you have to keep in mind if you're trying to do an exclusion on a roosting colony on your property. Now, that might be an unfortunate pill to swallow, hearing that you can't get rid of your nuisance issue, until basically October. So if you're dealing with that nuisance through the months of June to August, then you're essentially powerless in what you can do. Now, but believe it or not, a lot of people, once hearing a lot of the core facts about bats and the benefits that they bring to their immediate environment, their immediate surroundings, is so beneficial to people that they don't mind keeping the bats around. So that's one thing that's done that, is the fact that bats handle the mosquito and moth population around your property. They're going to be eating their body weight in insects every night, and a mother that has pups is probably going to be doubling that. So they're managing the population of those insects for you during those summer months. And also, like I said earlier, the guano is a great fertilizer. So believe it or not, people will use the guano to garden, and they've grown everything that you can possibly imagine, from regular plants to fruits and vegetables. So that's something else that benefits from the bats being around. Hey Rudy, can you stop that please? Thank you. I love it when you listen. Thank you. No, this isn't a toy. So those are just a couple of things why people don't mind having the bats around, because they're beneficial to them. So a lot of people also, though, are not interested in the benefits that they bring, but more so the harm and destruction that they may bring. And a lot of those perceived notions of bats and bat behavior is actually false. They're not true. One being, people think that bats are natural carriers of rabies, which isn't true. Yes, bats can carry rabies, but it's not as high as you would think, and the actual chances and likelihood of a bat biting you are extremely slim. They're not aggressive. They aren't looking to attack or bite people. Even when you have those situations, come on, bro. Good boy. Even when you have those situations where it's a single bat that's flown into a house mistakenly, and that's usually what it is. Bats are excellent flyers, so if they've flown into your house, it's definitely by mistake. They don't want to be in there. So if they're flying around in there, they're not in there trying to attack you, they're not trying to bite you, they're trying to find a way out. So the easiest way to get a bat in that situation out of the house would be to try and close them off in a room, open the window, and in time they'll just fly out, which is what they're trying to do anyway. So the quicker we can kind of help them out, the better. But they're not gonna just fly around looking to bite you. That's not what bats do. That's not how they operate. If you can't tell by all this commotion, Rudy found a stick. Yeah. Usually what happens. You might need a bath after this, Roo. I hate these muddy hikes. Speaking of that, look at all that. I'm not picking you up again, and there I am. Rudy, it's time to go up again, bud. I think we came out of that way. Well, let's figure it out. Wonder what makes it look like that. If you know, comment and let me know. I want us all learning here, including myself, because I don't know it all. That's why I love working in this field of wildlife conservation. I'm constantly learning, and I love that aspect of it. And I intend to continue to learn and increase my knowledge of wildlife and conservation. Stay. He probably won't. Good boy, Roo. Now, even after hearing all of that, hearing all of these facts about bats and the contributions that they bring to their immediate environment, and as well as all of the false claims that about bats, if after hearing all of that you're still not willing to keep the bats around, which is completely fine, then, and you still don't want to necessarily wait until that time period of when you can actually perform the exclusion or eviction, what you can do is build a bat house. And a bat house is just kind of like a wooden box, similar to what you would build as a bird house, on a metal pole about 8 to 10 feet off the ground, because again, remember, they need that height, so when they drop out to fly off, there's enough space between them and the ground so they can lift off. That's also another option to kind of help you mitigate the nuisance issues that you're having. If you can get them from inside your building to the box into the bat house, then that will help you out significantly. But I would always like to tell people that that movement isn't always guaranteed. You know, there's no saying that they will leave the attic and go into the bat house. So you always want to make sure that everything is precise. You want it to have at least 8 to 12 hours of immediate sunlight, because bats need that heat for energy and for warmth. And again, you want it to be high off the ground. So that might be a better alternative for someone that wants to keep the bats around, just not necessarily in their attic or in their building, which is completely fine. But that wraps up today's video. I hope you guys enjoy learning about bats and learning how to handle nuisance issues related to bats. And if you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to be notified the next time I post. And until next time, peace out.